Ms. Meenakshi, lecturer, Department of Computer Science Self-Financing Section, Sita Lakshmi Ramaswamy College, Tiruchirappalli. Today, I am going to take the topic Introduction to ER Diagrams in DBMS. ER diagram, Entity Relationship Diagram. This is the visual representation that is used to display the data in the database. And this diagram shows the relationship between the entities and the attributes of that entity. This diagram gives the clear structure for the entities and the relationship and the attributes that belong to that entity. If we take an example as university, the entity may be student, course, and instructor, and so on. And the relationship between the student and course will be enrolls in. The student enrolls in the course and the instructor teaches the course. This is the relationship between the entities, and student, course, instructors are the entities. Why we are using the ER diagram in DBMS? This gives the better understanding of the entity and the relationship. That is the data going to be stored in the database. To build the database very quickly, with the diagram, we can easily structure the database. And this gives the logical structure of the database. These are the symbols used in ER diagram. Rectangle is used to represent the entity, and the ellipse is used to represent the attributes, and the diamond symbol is used to represent the relationship between the entities, and the line is for the connectivity between the entity and the relationship and the attributes, and the double ellipse is used to represent the multi-valued attributes, and the double rectangle is used to display the weak entity. In the previous slide, we have seen the symbols of ER diagram. Now, we are going to see how the symbols are used in the ER diagram with the example. Entity. Symbol for entity is rectangle. And the real world objects or the real world concepts or the entities. That is going to be displayed in rectangle symbol. And attributes. The symbol for the attribute is ellipse. What is attribute? Attribute are the properties of that entity. If we take student as the example or teacher as the example, name of the teacher or student of the teacher, name of the student register number, student address, student mobile number, these are the attributes of that entity. And what is relationship? That is displayed in the diamond symbol. Relationship is between two entities that connect two entities to one another. That is how they interact between them. That is the relationship between the two entities. And this example shows teacher and courses are the entities and teachers is the relationship. That is teacher teaches the courses, and teacher name is the attribute for the teacher. Course ID and course name are the attributes of course. Primary key. What is primary key? This is one of the attributes of the entity, and that primary key should be underlined inside the ellipse. What is primary key? This primary key is an attribute which is used as the unique value for the entity. This won't be duplicate one. And next one is composite attribute. What is meant by composite attribute? This is also an attribute, but this attribute is the composing of more than one attribute. If we take the name as the example, this can be composed of first name, middle name, and last name. So the name will be the composite attribute. And in the ID, the underline is there. This is the primary key in this example. Multi-valued attribute. It is represented as double oval. One attribute which can have more than one value means that attribute is mentioned as multi-valued attribute. In the given example, If the student is having more than one phone number, then that attribute is represented as double oval, derived attribute. The name itself mentioning thus that attribute is derived from some other attribute, and the derived attribute is represented as dashed ellipse. That is, here the student example age is represented as dashed ellipse. This age is derived from the date of birth attribute. This is the derived attribute. In the ER diagram, these are the types of relationship between the entities. There are four types: one-to-one relationship, one-to-many relationship, many-to-one relationship, and many-to-many relationship. One-to-one relationship. One entity is associated with at most one entity in another table. In the example, student has identification card. One student has one identification card. This is one-to-one relationship. One to many. Here, one entity can be associated with multiple entities in another table. A department has many employees and a customer can place many orders. These are the examples of one to many relationship. Many to one relationship. An entity in one table can be associated with the single element in the second table, and another entity of the first table can be associated with the single element in the second table. That is, many students can enroll in the single course. This is what many to one relationship. Many to many relationship. Entities in one table can be associated with multiple entities in another table and vice versa. Many employees can be assigned in many projects. This is the example for many to many relationship. Example ER diagram for hospital. Here doctors, patient and test are entities that is represented in the rectangle symbol. And doctor patient is the relationship between patient and the doctor. And performed by is the relationship between test and the doctors. And test log is the relationship between patient and test, and the ellipse are the attributes of that entity. SS number, name, insurance, date admitted, date checked out, or the attributes of patient. Like this, ellipses are represented as attributes of the given entity. Strong entity versus weak entity. Strong entity. An entity which has its own primary key and it does not depend on any other entity is called strong entity. Strong entity can be represented as a rectangle symbol. Here, if we take the employee as the example, employee ID is a primary key and it is a strong entity. Weak entity. Weak entity cannot have a primary key, and this weak entity has to depends on another strong entity which has a primary key. For example, if we take the order detail, that order detail entity does not have any primary key, and this order detail it depends on the entity order. So the order detail is the weak entity and that is represented as double rectangle. How to draw an ER diagram? First, identify the entities and draw the entities inside the rectangle. Then identify the relationship between the entities and draw the relationship in the diamond symbol and connect the relationship with the entities. We should not connect the relationship with one another. Then identify the attributes for the entities and draw the attributes inside the ellipse and connect the ellipse with the entity. If we find any redundant entities or relationship, then remove the redundant one. And we have to make sure all the entities, relationship and attributes are designed inside the ER diagram. Now we come to conclusion. ER diagram in DBMS is widely used to describe the conceptual design of the database. It helps the users and the database developers to preview the structure of the database before implementing the database. Thank you.